Um, this is going to be a new and different kind of reaction. Usually, when I do a reaction of any kind, it is, if I'm playing a game or if I'm responding or reacting to, a show. There are clips from the show. There may be stills and things in this video, but this is a little different. For those of you who may not know, part of my particular nerdom is that I am a proud critter, meaning that I am a fan of Critical Role. I got into them in the middle of Campaign 2. I came to them, well, actually more toward the beginning of Campaign 2. I didn't quite catch it when it started, but I became very quickly attached to the Mighty Nine. And they're probably my favorite, not least of which because they were my introduction to Critical Role. If you don't know what Critical Role is, they are a group of nerdy-ass voice actors who get together once a week to play Dungeons & Dragons as an actual play game that they record, and then people watch. Now, on average, these go, I would say, a minimum of 3 hours. They've gone over 6 hours before. They're usually between 3 and 4 hours, with a break in between. And they have, exploded the culture. They're certainly not the only ones, but I think they're probably one of the most well-known. I don't think that's controversial to say. And for the first time this year, as they're celebrating 10 years of doing this. They're doing tons of live shows. In fact, I'm going to see the wedding of Jester and Ford in 2 days. Very excited about that. Although one day, I think, by the time you see this. Anyways, so they started a new campaign just last week. And it's the first time, really, that a lot of people have had a chance to kind of get in on the ground floor, because it's a lot of content. And all of their first 3 campaigns all took place in one world, which was largely constructed by Matthew Mercer, who is their Dungeon Master, or GM, Game Master, whichever you prefer. He's been doing it for a long time. He's incredible. The voices he does, the sound effects he makes, the stories he tells. Now, he would argue that he's not the storyteller. He's the conductor, if you will. But he would say that it is collaborative, which it is. A lot of people have argued over the years whether it's scripted or not scripted. These are all... And I get why, because they're all actors, they're all improvers, they're all voice actors. They're really good at what they do, and they've been doing it for a really long time. So it's really not a big surprise, or it shouldn't be, that their gameplay doesn't look like yours and mine. It's something that a lot of us aspire to. But you shouldn't be disappointed if your game doesn't look like their game. So having said that, as I said, the first 3 campaigns took place in Exandria, which is full of lore and culture and religions and subcultures and secret societies and all kinds of shit. And it's really interesting, and it's really storied, and it's legend. But for their new campaign, Campaign 4, they decided to actually let Matt join the cast and play. And so they brought in another legendary DM, Brennan Lee Mulligan from Dimension 20, which is a different live-action role play. They don't always do D&D. although they have done D&D, but they do all kinds of different tabletop RPGs. And I have to be honest, overall, I think more often than not, when Brennan Lee Mulligan is on his show doing his thing, it tends to be a little more hijinksy, a little slapsticky even. It tends to have more comedy beats. And I think that's just the chemistry of the cast. But each time he has guest DM'd over on Critical Role, which he has done a number of times, to do little mini-series, like with 3 games, usually. 3 separate sessions that kind of tell a piece of Exandrian history. He's been incredible, intense, dark, merciless when it comes to the players, and just really, really powerful and dramatic. Not that there aren't also funny moments, but I don't know, we just see a darker, more serious side to Brennan historically when he is DMing on Critical Role. So everyone was very excited to see that Brennan was going to do an entire campaign. These campaigns last between 2 to 3 years. It's once a week. It seems like, 3 to 5 hours, that's a lot. And it is, but they never seem to run out of stories. If anything, they wind up adding one-shots and things in live shows so that they can pick up threads and storylines that maybe got left at the table, that never got followed up on, that people want to know about. And so those have been really enjoyable. But they're not doing this campaign in Exandria. They have given Brennan free reign to do his thing, and he has created a whole new world. So for a lot of people, they're coming into this campaign kind of open. They don't feel like they have to know a lot about lore and history because it's all new. It's all being created. I believe the cast said, where they're discovering the world of Araman, just as we are, as the audience. So it's going to be very interesting and a lot of fun to watch this grow from a seedling to whatever it's going to become. So I thought I would take this opportunity to react each week to the previous week's episode. So it's always on Thursday nights, and we had our first one last week. It's a much bigger cast. Brennan is doing a West Marches style game. A lot of people, myself included, didn't know exactly what that meant. And essentially what it means is if you've seen Lord of the Rings, or if you've watched Game of Thrones, or any, what they would call, I guess, epic spanning story, where you have a core group of that's relatively large, that has an objective, maybe the same, maybe not, but it has pieces. Like in Lord of the Rings, especially in like the Two Towers, the Fellowship kind of split up, and like the hobbits went and talked to the treants, and like Frodo and Sam and Gollum were doing their thing, and Gandalf had his things to deal with, and so on and so forth. And so all of those things, all of those pieces of the story were happening simultaneously. The same kind of thing in Game of Thrones. You have all these characters, and you're looking at little snapshots of what's happening right now in King's Landing, and what's happening on the wall at the same time, and then what's happening, in Winterfell at the same time, and what's happening with Daenerys. And it's all happening simultaneously. So this allows flexibility for the cast because they have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 12 players. 12 players. That's a big table. And it takes a long time for everyone to take their turns, especially when you get into combat. If you've ever run a game or played in a game, you know a 4-person group can get quite involved and take a long time to resolve the dice rolls and the mechanics. And so all 12 people aren't going to be together the whole time. And some weeks we might not see entire storylines for whatever reason. And so that's what that means. It's very, cinematic in that it's going to hop around between different points of view, between different threads in the story, and that's what we're looking at. So right off the bat, I'm just going to get into what happened in the first episode, and my thoughts and some of the relationships I'm very interested in seeing. You should probably you should probably know that, like I said, it's a big cast. There are going to be people are going to have their favorites. That's always the case. But all of these people are highly capable. We have the regular cast, and I'm just going to go through. So we have Laura Bailey. She is a regular. She's amazing. She's playing Thimble, who is a sprite, a little 4.5, I think she said, inch tall fairy, who is the best friend of I can't call him the protagonist, but he certainly is the starting point for this entire campaign. A character by the name of Thjazi Fang, but we'll get into that in a minute. So Laura Bailey is playing Thimble. Robbie Damon, who is new to the cast, but I think at this point most people consider him a regular member of Critical Role, is playing Cadigan Vale, who is, if I'm remembering, a ranger? A ranger. Yeah, I think he's a ranger. With a wolf companion who has a ghost paw. He's very cool. The designs of these characters are incredible. Actually, I think I'll put them there. So that's Laura. That's Thimble. And then we have Robbie playing Cadigan Vale. He is the daddy that everyone is thirsting over. Taliesin Jaffe, who is also a regular, he is playing Belair. Or Bolair, sorry, Bolair. I think it's Lathalia is how you pronounce his last name. He's very interesting. Ashley Johnson, who's playing Valus. Matthew Mercer is finally getting to play a full campaign with them. He's very excited. We're all very excited. They're very excited. And he is playing Sir Julian Davenos. Liam O'Brien, who is playing Hallandil. Everyone calls him Hal. Hallandil Fang. Sam Regal. Wakander Halavar. Everyone is calling him Wick. Marisha Ray is playing Murray Magnuson. And then the new people that we have, not new to Critical Role, they have guest starred. Occasionally they'll have friends of theirs come in and play an NPC, a non-player character, or someone that they interact with or who is a contact for a short period of time, but they don't stay throughout the campaign. and so these people have played with them before. There is Abria Iyengar, who is also a DM. She is playing Taisha Loy, and then Whitney Moore, who is playing Tyranny. She's also a fan favorite, it seems. And Alexander Ward, who is amazing. He is playing Octus Taconis. And so these are the main characters. And they're all incredibly interesting. So, right off the bat, the production team at Critical Role did a whole new set. It looks incredible. It's not just a false back as they showed us in the cooldown after the fact, but they have little alcoves that they can like walk back into, and it's very cool looking. But the story focuses on this Thjazi guy, Thjazi Fang. He is an orc who led a revolution, and it would seem, at least from my perspective. Oh, and I should warn, spoilers. If you haven't seen episode 1 and you don't want spoilers, just stop now. Come back and check it out after the fact. But so Thjazi is set to be executed. He's going to be hanged. The reasons aren't 100% clear, other than being the general rabble rouser and in inciting things that the powers that be don't necessarily want. And there's a plan to get him out of it, to make sure that he is magically whisked away at the last moment and ferried out of the city and to safety, where he can live to fight another day. And something goes horribly wrong. The escape plan fails spectacularly, and he is hung, and he dies. And right up until that moment, several people in the crowd are waiting for that moment, and when it doesn't happen, there is shock and questions and anger and disappointment and all of those things. So, like, Liam's character, Hal, is his half-brother, so he's obviously very distraught, and it basically opens on him in his home preparing for the funeral of his brother. And all of the people have different relationships with this now deceased character. Most of them, I will say, seem to regard him with loyalty, respect, and affection, but not all. And we'll get into that in a moment as well. So the cool thing about Brennan setting this up at a funeral is that, if, as anyone knows who's been to a funeral, you're going to see people who have different relationships with the deceased. Not always cut and dry or clear. It's usually complicated. There's usually at least one person at any given funeral that other people are wondering why they're there. And sometimes you get into exes showing up and how that plays out, and it's complicated, it's messy, and these are the things that role players tend to love, exploring those moments, that human condition, the things that make us interesting and diverse and complicated and layered, and that stir emotions, good, bad, and indifferent. So, Liam's character is, I thought, I didn't realize until I watched the episode that they were half brothers. I thought they were full brothers, but and I forget. I think they have the same father, but different mothers. I think, but don't quote me on that. But like the first two things that I noticed as far as relationships goes is Octus and Wick. Both of them are from powerful or growing in power houses in this society that kind of run the city that they're in. And by the time we get to the halfway point of the first episode, it is clear that there is some animosity, or at least some tension, between those two houses. And it seems to be based around who is going to ultimately hold power. In the case of Wikander's family, they seem to be sitting on top currently. And there are several scenes between Wikander and his family that make it clear that how they have achieved that position is not necessarily, how should I put this, genuine or sincere. But for whatever reason, Wikander, being young, relatively naive as far as I can tell, and very wide-eyed and devout in his faith, doesn't see it. He's completely focused on his faith and living a life according to that faith. He does not seem like his family. Although he does seem to hold a little disdain for Octus's family. Now, Octus's house seems also to be one that is subtly feared. They seem to be wizards. I don't know if the whole family is necromantic or just Octus, but people seem wary of the name. The House Taconis seems to be respected and a little feared, and we haven't met any of them yet, so it's hard to make a judgment call. But in general, whenever the name has been mentioned thus far, it seems like there is some wariness, whereas Octus seems quite, again, young, naive, a little innocent in some ways, socially awkward, but sweet. That may be open to interpretation, but at this point, that's what I would say. And again, with with Wick, he seems a bit pompous, but it's not. I don't think it's malicious. But you never know. So there's the two of them who stand apart from their individual houses. I find that interesting. I don't know whether they will, what kind of a relationship they will have. I do know that Sam, as playing Wick, has an aspirant, someone who is learning the faith by his side. Now, I'm not entirely sure how that yet happened. That hasn't really been made clear to me either yet. But he has a tiefling girl with him who is technically a demon from a different dimension, reality, plane of existence. And now she's here, and she is trying to follow the light. And her name is Tyranny. And Whitney Moore is doing an awesome job of just being a little ball of chaos and stirring the pot and stirring up trouble wherever she can. In fact, so far, and again, this can change because we're still learning so much, I think she's the only one who doesn't really have a relationship or connection to Thjazi. In fact, the only reason that she seems to be at the funeral is because she is accompanying Wick. No other reason. She's the only one, I think, that that's true of. She has a sister who stays by the side of Wikander's grandmother. There seems to be some tension between her and her sister. I think her sister's name is Enmity. Great names, by the way. But she's doing a fantastic job. She has said that she intends for Tyranny to be much more sensitive, I think she said was the word. So far we haven't seen it, but we'll see what happens. Liam's character of Hal is also interesting. He's a bard. He seems to be relatively well thought of by people in the neighborhood, by other, members of the family. He seems to have gone through all of the proper channels to try to, plead his brother's case, plead mercy for him, to get him, to get, a pass for the death penalty, but that didn't happen, including having Wikander, who respects Hal greatly, so much so that he attends the funeral, even though it was his family that executed Thjazi. He seems to genuinely admire Hal. And that seems to be the case with a few characters. He does not seem to be a rabble-rouser, like his brother was. That may be about to change. He also, which a lot of people are questioning Liam's sanity, has decided to have family, specifically children, lots of children, and exes. Which, if you know Brennan, children and loved ones are not off limits to get got in these kinds of games. So, we'll see what happens with that. But he has 3 children that we know of so far. He has, with Abria's character, Taisha, he has 2 children, Shandia and Allegan. Now, it doesn't seem that he was married to her, just they had 2 children together. And then she got her calling and became a druid. She said in the episode that she abandoned her kids. I don't get the impression that they seem to feel like that, or that Hal feels like that. But clearly, Taisha has some guilt around that. But yeah, she has 2 children with him. She also showed up for the funeral. She seems no nonsense, but kind of sweet. It's a different side of a Bria that I haven't seen her play before, and it's been great. She's also protective, but she's in an interesting situation at present. But pause on that. Hal also has another daughter, who is a half-orc, named Hero, who he had with a human woman. So little Hero is a half-orc. I say little. I don't actually know. She's not that young. Excuse me. Because she attended the funeral and was talking to him more like a teen or preteen. So I shouldn't say little. But her mother's name is Elodie, and apparently she is a merchant. Now, Thjazi apparently was married before to an NPC, not being played by anyone other than Brennan, named Aranessa Royce. And apparently she went to the powers that be on his behalf to plead clemency. And for whatever reason, the family, that would be Wick's family, kept her waiting all day so that the request basically couldn't get made. Or at least that's her opinion of why they kept her waiting. Because she's also a noble, and they just kept her in the lobby until it was too late to do anything about it. And she went to the execution, but she couldn't bring herself to go in and watch her ex-husband, who presumably she still has great affection for, leave this world. The problem is that when Thjazi decided, when he married her, it was 2 years later that he started his little revolution, and it was against her family. So needless to say, I mean, they never got divorced or anything like that, but they were estranged and hadn't seen each other for many, many years by the time his execution came about. Already an intense and crazy soap opera. Where it gets really crazy is that Aranessa has a childhood friend who is by her side in attendance of this funeral, and that best friend is being played by Matthew Mercer. That would be Sir Davos. And by all accounts, Davos is the one who caught Thjazi and brought him to justice in the first place. And then apparently hated Thjazi. And yet brings her to the funeral, where, while no one is looking and he is paying his respects, he spits on the corpse of Thjazi at the funeral. A lot of people in the cast have talked about how funny it is, because Matt is just... I've never heard anything bad really said about Matt Mercer. Most people who talk about him talk about what a kind, generous, sincere person he is, what a big-hearted person he is, what a talented and giving and performer he is, what a generous scene partner he is, etc., etc., etc. Nothing but good things. And so it's wild that almost every person on the cast has gone on record to say what a POS fucking Sir Davos is. So, I was trying to mentally prepare myself to not love Matt. Well, I always love Matt, but Matt's character. And I have to say, he's a dick. I mean, he is. But I'm not entirely sure at this point if he's a dick for no reason. Now, To what extent he should or should not be a dick, I don't know. But it seems from the little conversation, there's a great scene with Davos and Lady Aranessa as they're going to the funeral, and they're talking about, you know, her mourning, because he doesn't seem to understand why she's so upset. It's been many, many years. You know, this guy made his choice, is kind of Davos's attitude. But there's more there. It seems like when whatever happened, when Thjazi launched his rebellion and did whatever he did, it destabilized Davos's house somehow. I don't know whether maybe his family sided with Thjazi or what happened, but it just seems like at this point that Thjazi's choice to take action against the powers that be rattled Davos's family. And I think, and again, this is just my take, I think that Davos is pissed and thinks that Thjazi was kind of selfish and is really salty about it. There's also a possibility that he could have feelings for Lady Aranessa. I don't know. Maybe both things are true. Maybe neither. Now, as soon as he goes to the funeral, there are a lot of people who are like, as I said earlier, what the fuck is he doing here? And Abria's character, Taisha, is one of the first to just call him out. Like, before he even enters the building, she uses magic to make it clear that he is not welcome. She seems to genuinely like and respect Lady Aranessa. Most people don't seem to have a problem with her being there. Hal seems a little surprised that she showed up, but not upset. And when Taisha calls him out, which she does, and was like, "Can I have a word with you privately for a minute?" Because she doesn't want to make a scene. And they go and they talk outside, and it's the first time that I saw Taisha kind of not waffle. It's clear she doesn't like him. She claims she doesn't hate him, but she doesn't like him. And she certainly doesn't seem to share his views on Thjazi. But it also comes out in that conversation that her eldest son and Hal's son, Alagar, is now in the military under Davos. So I guess my question is, and this may help to inform my opinion of Davos. Taisha certainly gives the impression that she is concerned for her son, and she makes it clear to Davos that she sees him as responsible for Alagar's safety. She basically tells him, if anything happens to my kid, they're not going to be able to identify you with dental records. And Davos, responds like, not over the top, like he's wounded by the implication, but like it's not something that he would do. He praises Alagar as being a good soldier, being disciplined, being skilled, and that his skill is growing. So I don't know if Davos is a person who would let his distaste for the uncle, because Thjazi is or was Alagar's uncle, or if he's someone that would, draw that line and clearly keep those things separate. Obviously, one I would respect, even if I wind up genuinely not liking Julian, and one is repugnant to me, and I just won't like Matt's character. It is possible. So that little cluster of relationships by itself is already fraught with possible intrigue and intense emotions and potential high stakes. So that's interesting. Talison's character, as always, is twisted and dark and mysterious. He's a warlock. The mask on his face moves like a face. He runs the museum in the city, which holds all kinds of arcane and magical things. It seems like being an arcanist is illegal. It's one of the things, one of the charges against Thjazi. And yet, I guess if you're government sanctioned, as it were, you can, own a museum where they collect these kinds of things. I get the impression that Belair was not a fan of Thjazi. I don't know why, as of yet. But he seems like he's good with it, that Thjazi's dead. And there's also an implication that he let Ashley's character in to the city. And when I explain her entrance, that will become clear why that's pops a question mark above my head instantly. But at the same time, he also seems genuinely close to Hal. Like, he likes him, he likes his children. There's even a moment where he's somewhat protective of the children as Lady Aranessa and Wick kind of get confrontational. Where he kind of whisks the children away protectively. So I really don't know what the fuck is going on with Talison's character. I don't know where he stands. And I think that's kind of the point. I think he's going to be slippery as things go on. And I don't know what his motivations are. I have not a clue. And Tel's really good at playing that. So that's going to be interesting. Ashley's character, Valus, is a dark elf, and she is still worshipping a deity that technically is dead. There were 7 in the world of Araman. They were the Shapers. They were the ones who created everything. And 70 years ago, they were taken down by humanity, and the 7 gods were killed, as far as we know. But the Dark Elves, or the Elves in general, I'm not sure in Araman if there's going to be a distinction between different types of elves. When she was speaking, she just referenced elves. So I don't know. But they were given an artifact. Something that basically grants the elves their immortality. And it was stolen, allegedly, by Thjazi. And so she shows up, pissed off, to collect it. She is not gentle in her approach. She marches in, she sits down, she demands her property back, and accuses the deceased of being a thief, and doesn't care who she offends in the process. It was actually kind of refreshing. Ashley, in the campaigns that I've seen, has either been super sweet or super uh, nice or super quiet and withdrawn. And not that Valus is particularly talkative, but holy shit. She is assertive and a bit aggressive and has an edge to her, and I would not call her at this point sweet or nice. So there's that. Marisha is playing someone. Murray is a dwarven woman who Marisha says, is based on her mom. She's got a southern accent. And if memory serves, Marisha is originally from Kentucky, so that tracks. She's no nonsense. She likes to party, and she worked with Thjazi. Doing what? I don't know. And there are some other people at the funeral as well who she kind of says, why don't we talk about this after the fact? The only person who actually knows where this artifact that they're looking for is Thimble, really, because she has it, or had it. Now it's gone. So I guess no, she doesn't know where it is. She knows where it was. She had it. She was the one who was supposed to help Thjazi escape. And so when Luis's character, Azun, go and Octus go to find her and see what the hell went wrong, they find her nearly dead. She's been attacked. There's been a fight. They're masked men. She doesn't know who they were. They take this item. I believe it was called the Night Song. It's a stone. But it's gone. And oh my god, how did I totally missed Travis. Teor. Pride Sire is his name. He is a cat creature, a cat man, basically a lion on its hind legs. And he comes in having had a military history with Thjazi, but having not seen him in quite some time. But he hears about the execution and comes into the city. His younger brother was also supposed to be the one to take Thjazi away, and that doesn't happen. And so we don't know where Teor's brother is. He's just MIA. He helps save Thimble's life and brings her back. They realize that they've been followed, and that's where they see Azune, or that's where they see Cadigan, Robbie's character. So, yeah, Azune, Octus, and Teor go to see Thimble. They manage to save her. Robbie's character, Cadigan, shows up for the same reason. He had heard they used to fight together. He knows Thjazi well. And he heard about the execution and came into the city because he usually stays out in the woods, as rangers and druids are wont to do, and comes back to address the situation, only to find that it's too late. And the internet is going crazy, like I said, with the thirst over Robbie's character, but that's nothing until you hear the voice that he has decided to put on this particular character. It's very low, it's very gravelly, and he's going with a thick kind of Cockney accent. So he's just got that Londoner bad boy going on, along with, X look. And so all of these crazy relationships are just getting started, and all of that was coming to a head, and Thimble and that group were coming back to the funeral, but it hasn't happened yet. That's where they kind of left us with, Valus showing up, making the accusation about the stolen property, the tension between, Davos and Taisha, and now the rest of the group heading back. And this big magical effect, which is the only thing I won't share, because I don't know where it's going to go next. But it's, you can see, Brennan has said that he intends for these first 4 episodes to be kind of an overture, an opportunity to get to meet everyone, see the different relationships and how people interact, and just really give each character a moment to shine. And so going forward after that will be getting into the meat of the campaign proper. And I know everyone's looking forward to it, but I really enjoy these early moments of learning who everyone is, and I gotta say, I told Geek when I was talking to him about it, because he doesn't watch live play. He usually gets like the stuff that's on the internet, or he'll get like kind of a synopsis, kind of like what I'm doing here, just through me talking about it and listening to other people online talking about it, but he doesn't sit down to watch it. And I was telling him, at this point, I don't trust anybody. Like, as I'm looking at these characters, knowing that some of them are quote unquote not allies, or not necessarily heroes, maybe they're anti-heroes, maybe they're villains, we don't know. I think I'm going to hold off on painting Sir Davos with that particular brush, because now I'm seeing, I think I'm seeing what Matt found so interesting about potentially playing this character, because he's complicated, or I think he is. I hope he is. He may just turn out to be a villain and a dick. In one of the chat rooms on Beacon, I mentioned, which is Critical Role's platform. I said, wouldn't it be interesting if Daphnos, if it was Matt who interfered with the plan that got Thjazi killed? I don't know if he did or he didn't. I don't know if he knew about it or not. But it'll be interesting. But like Geek pointed out, well, what about Thimble? Now, she's supposed to be Thjazi's best friend. Like, the person who is like his Samwise Gamgee. Do you know what I mean? His right hand. She's always with him. Is it possible that any one of these people, Sam's character, who seems so innocent and wide-eyed, is he? I don't know. After watching these guys, for 3 campaigns, sometimes they like fucking with us. They like, to zig when we think they're gonna zag, and it's never 100% clear. I mean, one of the things with their last campaign, Bell's Hells, had some trouble connecting with some of their fan base. Not everybody loved it because they were not clear-cut heroes. I mean, none of them really were, but Bell's Hells really kind of pushed the envelope. And technically some people, both in the campaign and out in the real world, hold them accountable for how Exandria was forever changed in a way that I don't think any other cast of characters had done before, by ending the reign of the gods. And so, this is going to be very interesting going forward. And this particular reaction is longer, I promise, than any of the ones going forward. I'm going to try to keep them under a half an hour and just kind of give a quick little summary and some of my theories on what's going on week to week. I will say that my focus will almost always be on the characters and the character development, because that's what pulls me in personally. I know some people, it's all about, the monsters and the combat or the overall story. For me, it's always about the characters and their stories and their points of view. And the more interesting and the messier it gets, the more it makes me feel and react. And that's why I love Critical Role. That's why I love RPGs. It's why I love Brennan Lee Mulligan, and I particularly love Brennan Lee Mulligan on Critical Role. I have watched Dimension 20, and he's awesome, and they are all awesome. But yeah, I like my angst. Let me know what you guys think. Do you have favorite characters as of yet? Do you have theories as to who you think are going to be close, who you think are going to have problems? I expect Wick and Octus to have some tension just because of their family, and I expect both of them to really kind of have to struggle with people judging them based on their family names. Davos, yeah, I'm going to be watching Davos like a hawk. And Valus, too. I think for me, the three quote-unquote anti-heroes or potential villains that seem most obvious are Davos, Valus, and Belair. I could be completely off base. I don't know. Any one of what would also be considered clear, quote-unquote, good guys or heroes would be Teor, Taisha, Hal, and Azun. But even Azun's a little bit iffy. And everyone else is gray. I have no idea. But again, any of those three good guys could prove to be something else, either by design or because of whatever may happen to them along their journey. It can change people. It can make people go from, or characters go from being sweet to being hardened or become jaded or bitter or angry. I mean, Hal seems like a very sweet guy. Like I said, he doesn't seem to be a rabble rouser like his brother was. But if Brennan, through his machinations as the DM, or just a roll of the dice, if something happens, God's forbid, to any of Hal's kids, that could change his trajectory as a character. Could change Taisha's trajectory as a character. I don't know. I don't know if he has more children, if there are other exes. We don't know. But any of the other characters are very gray and kind of up in the air. Maurice's character seems to be kind of mercenary. Valus obviously seems... No, I can't say. I mean, if somebody stole something from me, I'd be pretty pissed too. Something that important to my culture, to my race. I don't know. I know I can't wait to find out. But yeah, tell me who your favorites are. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you're new, if you're a newly minted critter, or just checking it out for the first time, or if you've been here all along, or whenever you jumped in. Let me know in the comments. You'll be able to find a link to the original content, obviously, and like I said, going forward I'm going to keep these a lot shorter and more concise, but there was a lot to kind of get people going forward. I'm just going to assume that you've at least watched this one and possibly have an idea of the story, but there will be spoilers, so never check me out if you don't know what's happened, unless you don't care about spoilers, in which case, welcome aboard. Alright guys, until next time.